One, the doctors had exhausted all options. They had tried physical therapy, intense treatments, and all sorts of advanced technology, but nothing worked. 9-year-old Lily Hayes hadn't walked since the accident that changed everything. Her mother, Veronica, a billionaire businesswoman, had spared no expense trying to find a solution. She hired world-renowned specialists, flew in robotic limbs from the top manufacturers, and even brought in private therapists to work with Lily. But the result was always the same. Nothing worked. The doctors were firm in their prognosis, telling Veronica that her daughter would likely never walk again. Every day, Veronica watched her daughter struggle. Lily had once been full of life, always running and playing, but now she sat in a chair for hours, staring out the window as the world passed her by. Her spirit had been chipped away by the endless rounds of treatments that led nowhere. Veronica had built a fortress around her daughter, but the silence within was deafening. Every corner of the mansion seemed to echo with sorrow. Lily's room, once a place of joy and laughter, now held only memories of a time long gone. Veronica had done everything in her power to help. She threw herself into her work, running her businesses with an iron grip, but there was always a weight on her heart. She had every material thing money could buy: luxury cars, designer clothes, and a mansion that could rival any palace. Yet, it wasn't enough. Nothing could fill the emptiness that came from seeing her daughter's pain. Veronica found herself questioning everything, wondering if the money and power that had once defined her success were truly worth anything. After all, they couldn't give her back what mattered most. One rainy afternoon, Veronica's car broke down in a quiet part of the city. The road she had taken was far from the well-manicured paths of her usual routine, winding through an industrial area she'd never noticed before. She had been on her way to yet another meeting with a new specialist who promised groundbreaking treatments for Lily, but her car had stalled on the outskirts of town. Her heart sank when she saw the garage in front of her. The paint on the sign was chipped, and the windows were smeared with dust, a far cry from the high-end repair shops she was used to. It was one of those moments when fate intervenes, whether you're prepared for it or not. Veronica pulled her car into the lot, hoping there was someone who could help. The mechanic, Eli, had been working under the hood of an old truck. He looked up, his face streaked with grease and sweat, as he noticed the luxury car pulling in. With a quiet nod, he motioned for Veronica to step out of the vehicle. Eli was the opposite of everything Veronica had known. A humble, quiet man in his early 30s, dressed in faded overalls and worn boots. There was nothing remarkable about him at first glance. Just a simple mechanic, someone who clearly worked with his hands for a living. But there was something about his calm demeanor that made Veronica pause. In a world of fast-paced, high-powered professionals, Eli was a stark contrast. He didn't rush or try to impress anyone with his words. He simply worked, as if time itself had no meaning for him. Veronica hesitated, but then stepped out of the car, locking the door behind her. She wasn't used to dealing with mechanics, especially not one like him. She crossed her arms and leaned against the car, watching as Eli walked over to her. He didn't immediately offer her a handshake or ask for her name. Instead, he took a quick look at the car's engine and immediately started working. For the first time in a long while, Veronica felt something she hadn't in years: relief. There was something soothing about Eli's presence, something calm in his silence. It wasn't the forced politeness of a professional, nor the friendly banter of a salesman. It was simply a quiet respect. As Eli worked, Lily, sitting in the back seat of the car, stared out of the window. The rain tapped against the glass, and for a moment she allowed herself to relax. The world outside seemed so far away, and in that moment she didn't feel the weight of the wheelchair, the leg braces, or the constant ache in her limbs. There was something about the garage that felt different, less sterile than the hospitals, less intimidating than the treatment centers. Eli's garage was a place of simplicity, where everything seemed within reach, and the machines didn't scream with artificiality. Lily leaned forward, her small fingers tracing the window pane as she watched the mechanic at work. The tools on the workbench caught her attention, strange, handmade devices, not the shiny, perfectly designed equipment she had seen in the high-tech medical centers. She watched as Eli reached for a tool that seemed to have been carefully crafted by hand. It wasn't something that could be bought in any store. It was personal. It was special. "Why do you look so sad?" Eli's voice was soft, breaking the silence between them. He didn't look at her directly, still focused on the car's engine. But Lily felt as though he was speaking to her heart, not just her ears. His words, though simple, felt like a lifeline. She hadn't heard anyone speak to her like that in a long time. Lily's voice was barely above a whisper when she answered, "I can't walk, not like the other kids, not like I used to." Her eyes remained fixed on the tools in the garage, not meeting Eli's gaze. She didn't want to see pity in his eyes, just like she had seen in so many others. Eli nodded, his hands never stopping their work. "I understand," he said simply, "but I don't think that's the end of the story, not yet." Veronica was about to speak, to dismiss the idea that someone like Eli, someone with so little, could possibly have any solution to her daughter's condition. She had spent years throwing money at every possible option, each one a disappointment, but something about Eli's words held her back. She didn't know why, but in that moment, she couldn't help but feel that he had something important to say. She watched as he continued working, his hands steady, his movements measured. There was no hesitation in his work, no uncertainty. Lily's face lit up as she watched Eli move. For the first time in what felt like ages, a spark of hope flickered in her eyes. She didn't know why, but there was something about this man and his strange garage that made her feel something she hadn't felt in years. Possibility. The sensation was so foreign, so unfamiliar, that for a moment she wasn't sure if it was real. She sat quietly in the back of the car, her eyes tracing Eli's every movement. She hadn't realized how much she missed just watching someone work, seeing someone do something with their hands. There was an elegance in it that the doctors and specialists had never shown her. It was simple, yet profound. She could feel herself relaxing, letting go of the tension that had been building for so long. Veronica noticed the change in her daughter's demeanor too. For the first time in a long while, Lily seemed to be at peace. Veronica glanced at the mechanic, then back at her daughter. "Lily, would you like to sit with him while he works?" Lily nodded before Veronica could even finish the sentence. She didn't need to say anything more. She slowly climbed out of the car, stepping carefully, as though every movement was carefully calculated. She didn't look at her mother or the mechanic. She simply walked toward the workbench, where Eli had set up his tools. For the first time in years, Veronica felt something she had almost forgotten: hope. Eli never asked questions he didn't need answered. But he noticed. He saw the way Lily studied his hands, the curiosity in her eyes as he explained gear movement or why a bolt mattered. Day after day, she returned with her mother, sitting silently at first, then gradually asking about tools, wires, and motors. While Veronica stood back and watched, unsure what was happening, Eli did something no doctor had tried. He treated Lily like she wasn't broken. He let her hold a wrench, handed her a screwdriver, and showed her how machines like people could still work if rebuilt with care. Lily thrived in that dusty little garage. The silence that had once surrounded her began to melt. She laughed at Eli's dry jokes, drew little schematics beside him on scraps of cardboard, and one day she asked if they could build something together. Eli paused. He'd thought about it too. He'd been sketching something late at night, a device, part walker, part brace, something simple but built from the heart, not from a catalogue. He nodded slowly. "Yeah, let's build something, just you and me." From that day forward, something inside Lily shifted. They scavenged parts from the junkyard. Old handlebars, wheelchair components, bicycle wheels, adjustable steel rods. Eli worked on the frame, carefully shaping it to Lily's proportions. It wasn't shiny or sleek, like the hospital-issued walkers, but it had personality. Lily painted it herself bright yellow with red accents. She called it Hope Machine. When Veronica saw it for the first time, she nearly objected. It looked too homemade, too fragile. But the look-in, Lily's eyes silenced her. It wasn't just metal and bolts, it was hers. It was built by someone who believed in her more than anyone else. The first time Lily tried standing with it, her legs trembled. Veronica reached to help her, but Eli gently stopped her. "Let her try," he whispered. Lily gripped the handles, planted her feet and pushed upward. Her knees wobbled and her arms shook, but slowly, inch by inch, she rose. A single step forward, awkward, shaky, but it was real. Veronica gasped. Her daughter had just taken a step. The tears came before she could stop them. Lily took another, then another. She collapsed into Eli's arms, laughing and crying at once. That garage, smelling of grease and rain, had just witnessed a miracle. Veronica couldn't believe it. Years of medical treatments, cutting-edge robotics, and professional care had done nothing. But a poor mechanic with no degrees, no credentials, and a soul full of quiet. Compassion had changed everything. The next day, Veronica tried to pay him. Eli refused. "I didn't do it for money," he said, wiping his hands on a rag. "She did the work. I just gave her a reason to try again." Veronica was stunned. In her world, everything had a price tag. Eli's integrity hit her harder than any business deal ever had. She left without insisting further. But word travels fast, especially when miracles are involved. A nurse who had once treated Lily saw her walking through the park with her walker. She posted a short video online. Within days, it went viral. News stations showed up outside Eli's garage. They called him the Miracle Mechanic. Reporters asked how he built the walker, what inspired him, and if he planned to start a business. Eli hated the cameras. He didn't like crowds or attention, but through it all, he kept saying the same thing. She believed in herself. That's what changed things, not me. Meanwhile, doctors who had once written Lily off began reaching out again. Specialists wanted to reassess her condition. Therapists called Veronica suddenly curious. Veronica smiled bitterly at the irony, how people only believed after the work was already done. But she didn't let bitterness win. Instead, she did something radical. She invited Eli to her home. At first, he resisted. "I'm not one of your suits," he said plainly. But Veronica wasn't asking him to be. She wanted him to be exactly who he was, a man who saw beyond damage, a man who built hope with bare hands. She sat him down at the massive dining table where business giants had once made million-dollar deals. But this wasn't about business. "I want to start something real," she said. "A foundation for kids like Lily, for families who can't afford hope. And I want you to lead it." Eli stared at her, unsure if she was serious. "Me?" he asked. "I fix engines, not people." Veronica smiled. "Exactly. Because you don't try to fix people. You listen, you build, and sometimes that's exactly what they need." For the first time in his life, Eli felt seen for who he really was. He still hesitated. He didn't know if he belonged in a world of executives, architects and therapists. But Veronica assured him, "Let them come to you. Build your shop how you want. Hire the people who care more than they speak." Slowly, Eli began to accept. They started with a modest space, a converted warehouse filled with workbenches, tools, scrap metal, and photos of smiling kids who had been told they'd never walk. Eli taught parents how to build braces. He showed teens how to tinker with their own wheelchairs. He even designed walkers that looked like race cars and spaceships. The foundation didn't just heal bodies, it restored dignity. Kids who had been overlooked found someone who saw them. Parents found a reason to believe again. Eli never gave long speeches, never wore fancy clothes, but every room he entered felt lighter. Volunteers came from all over the country, engineers, welders, even artists. The goal wasn't perfection, it was progress. And slowly, across the country, word spread that something remarkable was happening in a little shop where a mechanic with calloused hands made dreams real again. Lily's recovery continued. She graduated from the walker to leg braces and eventually short, unassisted walks. The day she let go and walked 10 steps to her mother unassisted, Veronica collapsed to her knees, overwhelmed. But the most emotional moment came weeks later. Lily asked if she could surprise Eli. She walked into the shop without her walker, smiling from ear to ear. When he turned around and saw her standing tall, walking on her own, his eyes welled up. For a moment, Eli, who never showed emotion, let the tears fall. Lily ran into his arms, whispering, "You gave me back my legs." The foundation grew quickly. Sponsors offered funding, but Eli insisted that no child would ever pay a dime. Veronica honored that. She sold one of her smaller companies to fund the expansion. Schools partnered with the foundation. Universities sent engineering students to intern with Eli. The children who visited weren't treated like patients. They were treated like future builders, inventors, and dreamers. Each kid left with something custom-made and a belief that they weren't broken, that they were just waiting for someone to look at them differently. Years passed. Lily began speaking at schools and conferences, sharing her story. She never called herself a victim. She always said, "I was just stuck," until someone handed me a tool instead of a diagnosis. Eli never liked the attention, but every time Lily told her story, she insisted he stand beside her. She wanted the world to know that heroes don't always wear suits or stethoscopes. Sometimes they wear oil-stained overalls and smell like engines. The children adored him. They called him Uncle Eli, the builder of dreams. One winter, Veronica hosted a formal gala for the foundation. Wealthy donors, medical experts, celebrities all gathered in a grand ballroom. Eli felt out of place. He wore a clean suit, tugged at the collar, and stood awkwardly near the exit. But then Lily took the stage. She spoke with grace, humor, and wisdom far beyond her years. When she finished, she looked toward Eli and said, "There would be no me without him." The crowd turned. Eli flushed red, but the applause was real, standing. Ovation. He hadn't expected it, didn't want it, but in that moment he accepted it. That night, as the gala ended, Veronica found Eli standing alone outside, watching the stars. "You built more than machines, Eli," she said softly. "You built my daughter's future, and mine too." He didn't reply right away, just nodded. "Funny," he finally said. "I was just trying to fix an engine that day." Veronica smiled. "Sometimes we break down exactly where we're meant to be." The two stood in silence, the cold air wrapping around them, their lives forever changed by one chance meeting, one broken car, and one little girl who believed again. Eli went back to his garage the next day. Even as the foundation grew, he always kept the old shop. It reminded him of who he was and where it all began. Hanging on the wall, next to a faded photo of Lily's first steps, was a sign she made years ago. "Broken is just a place you start from." Every morning, Eli looked at that sign before picking up his tools, and every night he locked up knowing he hadn't just fixed machines that day, he'd helped someone believe again. Because sometimes that's all the world really needs.